The saint who never grows old. 4 centuries of papal praise for Saint Francis de Sales. My dear friends, when the popes of the church, spanning 4 centuries, speak with one voice about a saint, we should pause and listen. From Pope Clement VIII in the 16th century to Pope Francis, every pontiff has found in St. Francis de Sales a light for his age, a pastor, teacher, and missionary whose heart burned with divine love and whose words still instruct the world. As Pope Francis beautifully summed up, everything in Francis de Sales pertains to love. Let us take a journey through time to see how different popes have seen in him a timeless guide for the church and for all who seek holiness. The first point for reflection: the early popes, defender of truth and model of gentleness. The first voices that celebrated St. Francis de Sales were those who knew his immediate impact. Pope Clement VIII recognized his holiness even before his canonization. When appointing Francis as coadjutor bishop of Geneva, the Pope told him words inspired by Scripture: "Drink, my son, from your own cistern, and let your waters flow outward for all to drink." It was as if Clement foresaw that Francis's wisdom would one day quench the thirst of generations. Pope Alexander VII, in the bull of canonization in 1665, praised him as the support of the church and the antidote against the poison of heresies. He saw in St. Francis de Sales not a warrior wielding weapons, but a shepherd armed with truth, gentleness, and patience, a living refutation of heresy through holiness. Even Pope Paul V consulted Francis during the famous theological controversy, the Auxiliis, trusting his balanced judgment. And later, Pope Benedict XIV called him the wisest guide of souls. Already, the church was learning that truth, when spoken with love, has irresistible power. The second point for reflection today: Pius IX, the doctor of the church and defender of the Pope. In 1877, Pope Pius IX raised St. Francis de Sales to the dignity of the doctor of the church, a teacher whose wisdom belongs to all ages. He described him as a man of renowned holiness, a teacher of true and pious doctrine. Francis's writings, said Pius IX, would last for all time because they made holiness accessible to everyone, noble or peasant, priest or layperson. Remarkably, Pius IX also honored him as a champion of papal authority. Francis de Sales, centuries earlier, had defended the Pope's primacy with clarity and love, so much so that his writings seemed to anticipate the very decrees of Vatican I on papal infallibility. He combined theological brilliance with a heart that trusted the church as mother and teacher. Pius IX went further. He called Francis de Sales the restorer of sacred eloquence, saying he had brought Christian preaching back to its ancient splendor. Indeed, few could speak to the heart as he did, simple, serene, and yet profoundly convincing. Third point for reflection: Pius XI, the universal call to holiness and the patron of writers. Fast forward to 1923. Pope Pius XI, marking the 300th anniversary of St. Francis de Sales' death, gave us one of the most beautiful portraits of this saint in his encyclical rerum omnium perturbationem, Pius XI declared that Francis's mission was to disprove the prejudice that holiness is only for the few. For Francis de Sales, sanctity was not confined to cloisters, it was a call for all Christians. He taught that holiness could be lived at home, at work, in family life, and in community service. He made holiness simple, not easy, but possible for everyone. Pius XI also revealed a side of Francis de Sales we must never forget: his meekness of heart. Francis was not naturally mild. He had to battle a fiery temperament. But through grace, he transformed that passion into patience, that fire into light. True meekness, said the Pope, is strength under control, and that is what made Francis truly great. Finally, Pius XI declared him patron saint of writers and journalists. Why? Because his pen, like his tongue, never wounded. He wrote with elegance, clarity, and charity, refuting error without bitterness, defending truth without arrogance. He remains the model for everyone who communicates the faith, especially in a world where words can kill or harm. The fourth point for reflection: the modern popes, the doctor of love and dialogue. Moving into our own era, the modern popes have rediscovered St. Francis de Sales as a master for our age of dialogue and peace. In 1967, Pope Paul VI, marking the 400th anniversary of his birth, called him the doctor of divine love and evangelical gentleness. Paul VI noted that Francis anticipated the spirit of Vatican II, especially its call to holiness for all, its emphasis on dialogue, and its respect for conscience. He pointed out that Francis's approach to ecumenism was centuries ahead of his time. He loved those who had gone astray and sought to win them not by argument but by affection. As Paul VI said, his was the victory of love. Later, Pope John Paul II, calling him the phoenix of bishops, admired Francis's vision of love as a friendship of preference, supernatural and sovereign. Pope John Paul II, Francis was the saint of friendship with God, a friendship that transforms all other relationships. Pope Benedict XVI described Francis de Sales as an exemplary witness of Christian humanism. He saw in him a harmony between faith and reason, devotion and humanity, a spirituality that sanctifies daily life. Benedict emphasized that Francis's conversion came when he discovered that God's love is pure gift, not reward. That discovery freed him from fear, and it can free us also. Fifth point for reflection: Pope Francis, everything pertains to love. Finally, Pope Francis, on the 400th anniversary of St. Francis de Sales' death, gave us the magnificent apostolic letter Totum Amoris Est, everything pertains to love. For Pope Francis, this phrase sums up the whole of Salesian spirituality. He reminds us that Francis believed God is the God of the human heart. To love God is not to escape humanity, but to live it more fully. Francis de Sales called the Christian life an ecstasy of work and life, to live our ordinary duties with extraordinary love. That is the heart of his message. Holiness is found not in leaving the world, but in transforming it by love. Pope Francis invites us to rediscover this Salesian path, gentle, practical, and joyful. It calls us to do small things with great love, to make our lives an offering, to bring serenity where there is noise and charity where there is division. To conclude, a saint for the third millennium. My dear friends, across centuries, from Clement VIII to Pope Francis, the popes have spoken of one truth. Saint Francis de Sales is not a saint of the past. He is a guide for the present and the future. He shows us that gentleness can be powerful, love can be strong, and holiness can be lived in everyday life. His teaching endures because it speaks to every human heart. That everything, yes, everything pertains to love. Live Jesus.